What if I told you that some boxers stepped into the ring never realizing it would be the last time they'd lace up their gloves? For every night of glory and championship triumphs, there are nights where tragedy strikes so suddenly that it leaves scars on the sport forever. These are the nights that remind us boxing is not just a contest of skill and willpower. It is a gamble with life itself. From Patrick Day's devastating brain injury in 2019 to Maxim Dashev collapsing backstage after one of the toughest fights of his career, the stories of these fighters are chilling reminders of the price this sport can demand. This is not about highlight reels. This is not about entertainment. This is the story of 20 boxers who lost their lives doing what they loved most, inside the squared circle. Patrick Day was one of those fighters. Born in Freeport, New York in 1992, he wasn't just a competitor, he was a role model. Polite, educated, and respected by everyone around him, Patrick embodied discipline and humility. His skills shined early, winning the New York Golden Gloves and earning a spot as an alternate for the 2012 U.S. Olympic team. He carried himself with dignity both in and out of the ring, the kind of fighter you wanted your kids to look up to. On October 12, 2019, Patrick stepped into the ring against Charles Conwell. It was meant to be a hard but fair contest, a stepping stone in both their careers. The fight was competitive, with Patrick showing flashes of brilliance. But as the later rounds wore on, Conwell's punches began landing with more authority. Then came the 10th round. Conwell unleashed a brutal combination. Patrick fell hard to the canvas, and this time he didn't rise. The crowd fell silent. Paramedics rushed into the ring. Patrick was rushed to the hospital, where doctors discovered catastrophic brain swelling. He underwent emergency surgery but remained in a coma. 4 days later, on October 16, 2019, Patrick Day passed away at just 27 years old. His death left the boxing world in shock. Conwell himself was devastated, penning a letter to Patrick's family in which he admitted, "I never wanted this to happen. I never meant to hurt him." It was a painful reminder that boxing is not a game. It is a sport where honor and risk exist side by side, and sometimes the price is unbearably high. Just a few months earlier, tragedy struck another promising star, Maxim Dashev. Maxim was born in Russia in 1990, and from an early age he showed signs of greatness. With a decorated amateur career and a relentless fighting style, he quickly gained a reputation as one of boxing's brightest young contenders. By 2019, he was on the cusp of world championship glory. On July 19th of that year, he faced Puerto Rico's Subriel Matias. From the opening bell, the fight was fierce. Both men fought with everything they had, trading punishing blows. But round after round, Maxim absorbed a relentless barrage. His trainer, Buddy McGirt, watched with growing concern. In the 11th round, he made the agonizing decision to stop the fight, prioritizing his fighter's life over the chance of victory. Maxim left the ring under his own power, but only moments later collapsed backstage. He was rushed to the hospital where doctors discovered severe brain swelling. Emergency surgery followed, but Maxim never regained consciousness. On July 23, 2019, he passed away at just 28 years old. His trainer later said, "I made the call to save him. I just wish it had been enough." His words captured the cruel paradox of boxing. Sometimes even when you do everything right, the damage is already irreversible. Just weeks later, Argentina mourned the loss of Hugo Alfredo Santillan, another young fighter who died after collapsing post-fight. These tragedies felt like echoes of earlier decades, proof that the dangers of boxing had always been there. One of the most haunting examples came in 1982 with the death of Kim Duk-koo. Kim was a South Korean fighter who fought his way up from poverty. Boxing wasn't just a sport for him. It was survival, a way to provide for his family. On November 13, 1982, he stepped into the ring against Ray Boom Boom Mancini. It was the opportunity of his lifetime, a chance to cement himself among the elite. What unfolded instead was one of boxing's darkest nights. The fight was brutal, with both men absorbing unimaginable punishment. By the 14th round, Kim had taken too much. Mancini landed a crushing combination that sent him down hard. Kim never regained control of his body. 4 days later, on November 17th, he died from brain injuries sustained in the fight. His death rocked the sport to its core. For the first time, people began to question if the length of fights was making boxing too dangerous. The incident led to sweeping reforms. Title fights were reduced from 15 rounds to 12, forever changing the sport. Kim Duk-koo's death was not only a tragedy, it became a turning point that altered the rules of boxing itself. But long before Kim, the sport had already faced tragedy in 1962 with Benny "Kid" Paret. Paret, a Cuban welterweight champion, was known for his toughness and willingness to trade blows. His rivalry with Emil Griffith was fierce, but also deeply personal. Before their third fight, Paret insulted Griffith publicly, igniting deep emotions. When they met in the ring on March 24, 1962, the tension was palpable. The fight escalated until, in the 12th round, Griffith trapped Paret against the ropes and unleashed a merciless flurry. Dozens of unanswered punches landed before the referee finally intervened. By then, it was too late. Paret collapsed unconscious and never woke up. He lingered in a coma for 10 days before passing on April 3, 1962. His death raised painful questions about refereeing, fighter safety, and whether the sport itself could ever truly protect its participants. Just 1 year later, tragedy struck again. On March 21, 1963, featherweight champion Davey Moore defended his title against Sugar Ramos. In the 10th round, Ramos landed a crushing blow that sent Moore's head snapping back against the ropes. Though he finished the fight, the damage was done. Minutes later in the dressing room, Moore collapsed. He died 2 days later from brainstem injuries, at just 29 years old. His death even reached the political stage, sparking debates about whether boxing should be banned altogether. The 1980s brought another heart-wrenching loss in the case of Johnny Owen, the Merthyr matchstick. A beloved Welsh fighter with a thin frame but endless heart, Owen finally got his world title shot in 1980 against Lupe Pintor. He fought bravely, but in the 12th round, a devastating right hand from Pintor ended the fight, and, tragically, Owen's life. He never regained consciousness and died after 7 weeks in a coma at just 24 years old. His entire hometown mourned, proving that when a fighter falls, it is not only his family, but an entire community that suffers. The tragedies continued into the 1990s. Randy Carver, a young American prospect, collapsed in the ring in 1999 and died 2 days later from brain injuries. He was only 24, his dreams of a championship left unfulfilled. Just 2 years later, Beethoven in Scotland collapsed after a brutal fight in 2001. He fought with all the heart in the world but succumbed to his injuries days later at just 26. In 2011, Russia lost Roman Simakov, a rising star who faced Sergei Kovalev. After taking a series of devastating punches, he was rushed to the hospital but died days later. His opponent, Kovalev, carried the guilt with him for years, dedicating a later fight to Simakov's memory. Mexico lost Daniel Aguillon in 2008 after a fight with Omar Chavez. Panama's Pedro Alcazar collapsed the day after a bout in 2002, proving that even when fighters appear fine, the unseen damage can be fatal. South Korea's Yoo Sam Choi collapsed in victory in 2007, his final fight ending in triumph but costing him his life days later. There were others, too. Fighters like Angelo Jacopucci of Italy, who died from injuries sustained in 1978, and Brad Rohn in 2003, who suffered cardiac arrest mid-fight. Rohn's story was especially heartbreaking. He wasn't fighting for fame or money that night. He was fighting to earn money to help care for his sick mother. His death showed the world that boxing is not always about titles and glory. Sometimes it is about sacrifice, survival, and love. These stories are not just tales of tragedy. They are reminders of the human beings behind the gloves. Fighters step into the ring with courage, knowing the risks, but driven by dreams, pride, or simply the need to provide for their families. Each loss leaves behind shattered families, grieving fans, and a sport forced to reckon with its dangers. Boxing's history is not only built on champions, but also on the warriors who gave everything, including their lives. Their stories remind us that courage is not always about winning belts. Sometimes it's about stepping into the ring at all, knowing what's at stake.